Шановні колеги, доброго ранку.
Esteemed colleagues, good morning. We are starting our working day in the UCMC. The topic of the first press conference is launching international coordination platform for the Russian opposition. Our guests are Olga Kurnosova, Russian politician, emigrant, Sergiy Parkhomenko, Elkhan Nuriev, Anti-Putin Information Front coordinator, Olivier Vedrine, French political expert, and Fedor Klimenko, the chief editor of Ruski Monitor publication. The first one will be Olga Kurnosova. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, I will be speaking Russian. I do understand Ukrainian, but I do not speak. And also Russian colleagues are with us. So if I may, I will be speaking Russian. During the Saturday and Sunday, we had an international conference, Democratic Transit of Russia. Where do we start? This is the new format, because that is the format of the civil society. The civil society activists, representatives of political parties, non-party members from Russia, our Ukrainian friends and our friends from Europe participated in this conference. Why we had this meeting and why is it so important? You understand that the regime that is heading Russia today is threatful not just for Russia, but for the nearest neighbors, Ukraine first of all, because even today it has started war in Ukraine, but that is dangerous for the whole of the world. If we leave everything in the situation like it is today, we don't know what might be the result. So we believe that there's no other alternative than to start the process of democratic transit, which will mean switching to democracy. Only democratic post-empire Russia, which will reject all its empire-like aspirations, could be secure for the whole world. We believe that the transition to democracy is not just possible, that is the only thing that can save us. But as history tells us, totalitarian regimes cannot fall only under the pressure from the inside, because totalitarian regime is the regime where the fighting from the inside is very much restricted. Totalitarian regimes fall when the pressure from the inside and outside are synchronized. And our conference was directed towards synchronizing this pressure. We have made several steps. We have created the platform, international platform, on which Russian opposition can get united. We took as the basis the declaration, the main items there. We had the meeting yesterday of our information block to coordinate our information projects. I believe that for such first step, we have worked pretty well. My colleagues will continue. Sergiy? Thank you. Good afternoon. A year ago, together with colleagues, with Elkhan, Nuriev, we have started to create Anti-Putin Information Front. And that's in action. Maybe you don't see this name in mass media. Our task is not to promote the brand, but this structure has the main thing. We need to fight against propaganda, not just on the territory of Ukraine, but on the territory of Russia as well. And we will be now working together. It is important for us to coordinate the efforts of our Russian colleagues and friends in Kiev, because Ukraine is a key component of fighting with the empire headed by Putin. And Ukraine is the link that unites Russian society, which is quite reasonable, and European community, which should understand what's happening in Ukraine and in Donbass. So we have developed a comprehensive approach on how to inform our allies in the West via Ukrainian and Russian diasporas, via Russian mass media that are not funded by the Kremlin, but that are the publications founded by Russian emigrants abroad. That is very important, because for each one of us it is clear, until we win the fight for the souls of people, until we get rid of zombieing of the society in Russia and the Ukrainian society that lives on the occupied territories and not far from there, we will not be able to defeat the Russian Empire. Why we don't have people from Russian opposition who are very famous? Because the real fact of change of Russia and liquidation of empire mentally and intellectually will be made by people who we do not see, whose names we do not see in mass media, because they are the real fighters. We need to understand that there are many allies of us in Russia, and our task is not to let them stay alone against the regime. And the second, only together we will be able to force our Western colleagues to explain what's happening, to make everything possible to delegitimize Putin's regime, and to achieve bigger economic information pressure on the official Kremlin. Without that, the process of transfer to democracy will not be launched. And we all together, Russians, Ukrainians, Chechens, Tatars, Azerbaijanis, we all give the sentence to Putin's regime. Of course, we would like this sentence to be given during the military tribunal in The Hague.
Good afternoon, dear friends. Unfortunately, till now, Ukraine is just chasing the pace of events, not preventing them. Although we expect that Russia may very soon face economic collapse, and since the sanctions will continue, from this month, Russia will need to pay billion loans and to repay billion loans, and our Russian friends suggested to have this anti-empire platforms. Unfortunately, when such huge empires split into fragments, of course, the usually it turns into big bloodsheds, because we have the longest border with Russia, and we used to be a big part of Russia. That's why this is true in terms of us. As Olga mentioned, we had found the joint platform for Russian opposition. Also, we have founded the Association of Russian International Journalists. Unfortunately, it's impossible to have such an association in Russia, because the mass media there are very much monopolized by the authorities, and we believe that it's our duty to support the people of goodwill in Russia. In reality, there are big numbers of these people in Russia, but unfortunately we cannot hear them, because they cannot express them against the total background of totalitarianism. That's why I would like to thank to Vasil Kuybida, the leader of this movement in Ukraine, and I hope that such meetings as we had recently will become regular. Thanks you very much, and I invite Mr. Olivier Vedrine to the microphone.
Yes, then I will speak in English. First of all, this platform is the result of a constat. The Russian opposition now is not efficient and not recognized as efficient in Europe and in USA. Because of the result of the last parliamentarian elections, you can see those very bad results. Those bad results is result of Putin policy, but also the result of inefficiency of the leaders of the Russian opposition. Then the constat is clear. We have to find new leaders. For the Western world and the free world, because the free world is waiting for new leaders in Russia and efficient leaders, and also for the Russian citizen, because they need efficient leaders, and now all those VIP leaders are only VIP but represent only themselves and has no results in the streets. Then the platform is for helping new leaders to come to the politics, to come to the opposition and to lead a new opposition. The Western world is waiting for that because we don't trust the Russian leader of opposition. Then we are waiting for new leaders. And that's why this platform is a good news for Russia and also for Europe, for USA, and for the Western world. I want to underline another fact. Free journalism. Yes, we will also coordinate a platform of journalism. Why? Because now in Russia, no freedom for journalists. Then I think if you want to if you want to work, you need to work on both sides. Political program, political events, and also communication. And that's why we will have those two parts: program, political training, and also communication with the journalists. And that's very important because that's a global view. We cannot face Putin with only local view. That's why we have to coordinate in Russia, in Europe, in USA, some events to make pressure on Putin. This platform will be a key player of the pressure on Putin, and we are planning some visits outside Ukraine, in Europe and in USA. Thank you.
Дякую вам. До слова запрошується Федір Клименко.
Thank you very much. I invite Fedor Klemenko. Good afternoon, dear friends. I have very much inspiration about that joint business which we have just started due to Elkhan, due to Sergiy, due to Olivier, to Olga, etc. I'm very enthusiastic about that event which we had during this weekend, because I believe that we will be able to introduce some fresh air to the oppositional atmosphere in terms of the surrender to the and resistance to the Kremlin regime. I agree fully with what Olivier just said, that many people, many leaders of opposition have no support from people on the streets. And the case is that in Russia, there is a sufficient number of oppositional publications, resources existing in internet. Some of them have gained a big audience, but we came to conclusion that all those resources they broadcast for those people who actually already know the situation. This audience is closed, so to say, in their circle in Russia. They do not go into the streets. They are not subscribers of Contact, of Facebook, unfortunately, we need to bring to the streets people who are the core voters of Putin and his allies. And if we do not manage to reach this audience, which is a massive audience, we won't be able to undermine Putin's regime. I think that we have found the way how to how to bring people into the streets. And very soon, Olga, Elkhan, and me will inform you on the progress.
Dear friends, if you have any questions, you can briefly ask them. I believe that this launch that we had during these days of is a very good start, and the colleagues mentioned that main thing we need is for people, for leaders of civil society to get their voice. In Ukraine, we don't need to explain to anyone that there are some political persons, figures, who love to be on the stage. But there's the street also, which is a moving force of the process. And when people go to Maidan, when such people can dictate their will to the political leaders, that's when the changes take place in the country. And we need to initiate such a process in Russia. Thank you. If you have any comments, if the speakers have any other comments, if not, then maybe questions. Okay. This is the end of the press conference. All the best. The next event will take place at 11.